So let's continue on here. So we've got our little lights, and I think everything's okay. You can always go back in and change things around as needed. But what I want to add now is a new fill layer. And for the fill, we're going to turn off the color. This is going to be our piece of glass. And turn off emissive. We're going to leave roughness. Normal, I don't think we need. So for the roughness, we're going to make it very shiny. Right? And in fact, I'm going to make this a little easier to see by adding a black mask. And then, so we've got our dark red here. I'm going to show you the first. More of this is coming, but initially, this is a really, really cool thing. So what I want is, I basically want this mask to drive where my glass is showing up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add an anchor point to the top of my dark red mask. An anchor point is basically it gives you the ability to duplicate or instance a mask from another layer. Now there's one important restriction, and that is if you want to use an anchor point, you've got the thing that references the anchor point has to be above it in the stack. Now why that is, I have no idea. That's just how it works. I think maybe, honestly, I have no idea. It seems like a very strange limitation, but it's very easy to add. So I'm going to add a fill here. And we have been dragging things into the fill. If you click the grayscale, you will see there is an option here called anchor points, and there is my dark red mask. So that means if I click on my glass now, I'm going to have the exact same mask as the mask that has the anchor point in it. And you can see if you name your layers, it'll give you a nice name for your anchor point that's going to be easy to find later on. So here we have our grayscale, dark red mask. Hopefully that's all fairly clear. And if I rotate my light, you can see we have our glass values only showing up where they're supposed to show up, which is exactly over that dark red. So this is an amazingly useful feature. It's so common to have to reuse the same mask information on different layers, and this is just makes it, because otherwise you'd have to like either paint it perfectly or duplicate it and have all this extra stuff in your scene. So very, very, very useful, super easy to use as well. So I've got my glass showing up here. So all of this stuff, oh, there's one more thing I want to do with the glass. I've got height, so I'm going to give it a little bit of height. We'll just kind of give it that nice little emboss there. So now it feels like it's a little, lens or something on top of this window, and inside of that space you have this light feature. But we need to make it look like it's not all lumpy, right? We're inheriting a bunch of crap from the metal underneath it, like all this paint. It's just getting added on. That's normally the behavior you want. Like if you've got some kind of bumpy surface and you put paint on that, you want the paint to inherit the bumpy surface underneath, and then if you put dirt on top of the paint, you want the dirt to inherit right? Like everything kind of feeds up. But in this case, I don't want to see any of that. So I've got this emissive folder here, this group, and what I can do is if I hop over to, there's a few things that are informing why that's looking bumpy, by the way. There's the height, which we can actually, if we just kind of roll through our information. So we're getting something from the metalness, so we want to obscure that. Roughness in this case looks fine. That's normal, there's no information there. Height looks okay, and there's nothing on emissive. But here we can see our normal plus height plus mesh. That's where some of the stuff is starting to show up, and we want to get rid of that. So we see it on metallic, and we see it on our normal plus height plus mesh. So what we're going to do is we will hop over to metalness first, our metal layer. We don't have anything in here that is speaking to metal, I don't think, right? Okay, so we've got our metal and it's turned all the way down on our glass layer. So what we want to do is for our blending, rather than saying normal, and this is on our layer here, like the top layer for the whole group, we want to set this to replace. So I'm going to actually need here, because I just turned all that stuff off, let me see what happens if I set that back to normal, if I just set this one to replace. Right, now it seems to like the parent layer to be the one that makes the decision. So I'm just going to add a black mask, and a fill. And once again, we'll just go ahead and grab our anchor point from the dark red, which is our base layer. So if I look at that mask, you can see that's how it looks. So now I can come over here. Let me head back over to metallic so we can see what we're doing. And I'm going to set this to replace. So you can see now I have punched all of the metal information out of that area. But we still have all this bumpy stuff. So that's mostly happening here in height, I believe. Linear dodge is add. So what we want to do is set that to replace as well. And we can see now that's looking a lot nicer. But in our color, I'm actually going to go to color. Or the dark red layer, because I want to block all that stuff in the back. I'm going to set the color to being on, and I'm going to make it black. So there you can see what that looks like. And it might be that with the color being set to black, it feels a little strange. Maybe with our dark red, we want to go a little bit darker with it. But anyway, you kind of get the point, right? Like this is, you've got to have your folder here is what's going to kind of punch things out. But it can look pretty cool. In fact, with the glass, if we want to do like an inset rather than it poking out, that's pretty easy to do. Maybe that makes a little bit more sense. Because what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add a little bit of roughness to it in my glass. So we'll just go ahead and make a new fill layer. I'll just call it roughness. And for this, we'll turn everything off except for the roughness. And I think I'll do a grunge. I'm going to add a black mask. Going to add a fill. And we'll just, anything, whatever. We're just getting a start here. And so with my roughness, I need to change the value so we get a little bit duller. And what I'm really thinking of is what is it going to look like around the edges, because I'm about to come in with a paint on top of that fill. And we'll grab a brush, whatever, dirt. And then with this brush, I'm going to be painting black. So we basically are just adding grime to the outside, the boundary of this feature. So we integrate it a little bit better, but maybe we want a little tiny bit just kind of in the middle here and there. And I'm going to look at my mask here. I think that's probably okay. And then the next thing that we would like to do is we'd like to just add some regular old dirt. So we have some dirt here. And the dirt, we want to make sure the dirt is nice and dull and not metallic, and maybe we give it a little bit of some color. We're probably going to add an overall dirt to this. Like, it's weird that there's only dirt on the glass, but we'll get there in a second. And for this, I'm going to add a black mask onto the dirt, and just to mix things up a little bit, we'll grab a smart mask, and then cavity, whatever, cavity rust, we'll see what that looks like. That looks like too much. So let's just add a paint. We've got our little dirt brush here. And we'll just add some around the edges. Whatever, right? Okay, so that's going to be our starting point for our lights. I don't remember. No, I don't have my symmetry on, which is actually fine. And in the next video, I'm going to show you an extension of this trick of using these anchor points to propagate this same feature to these other recesses without having to build it again. And spoiler alert, it's not going to work, and we're going to need to do something else to make that happen. But it's all going to be cool. We're going to learn some stuff. So I'll see you in the next video.